Check 1 2, checking 1 2, check 1 2, check, check. Oh, Tati. There's only so much time in life. If you're going to listen to something, you might as well listen to something that inspires you. Baker Street with Thom Pollard is just that. Stories that inspire. Welcome to Baker Street with Thom Pollard, another fire pit edition in the mountains of New Hampshire. Get schooled. Nobody lights a fire pit like me. One match, you get it all set up, ready to rock, put that match in there, boom. Within 5 minutes or so, you've got yourself a nice little fire going. Gather around your friends, family, the dog, and also bugs scatter. Go away, bugs. It is the greatest use of smoke known to man is that it makes all mosquitoes and black flies shudder with fear. They even warn their children. The music we are listening to is my man, Lobo Loco. The tune is You Get the Blues. This song certainly feels about right for the mood we're trying to set for a cool episode, and we talk about Ubuntu, and I'll tell you what that is later. Lobo Loco can be found on the Free Music Archive, or you can find him at his website, musicbrause.de, musicbrause.de. Nothing like a fire pit on a Saturday night in the middle of summer on a gorgeous evening. The sun always sets right over my shoulder about this time, a little earlier, unfortunately, as the summer goes on every night. But around this fire pit, many laughs have been had, many good thoughts, and a lot of good journal entries have been made. And I'm glad you're here to share it with me. I love making a fire pit. I love having a fire. When people visit, it puts them at ease. It highlights the beauty of the outdoors, and many times you can hear the birds chirping, and sometimes the dog gets a little bit noisy and barks, but generally speaking, having a fire pit is an extra room on the house. So I live in this small place in the mountains of New Hampshire, in the woods, really close to wilderness, and you can hear a road some ways away, but generally speaking, the only noises that I hear are the ones that I make, or the fire pit makes, my dog makes, or hawks or birds, and occasionally the other visitors that come here. I've had a moose walk literally right by on this deck where I'm sitting and look in the window, and then it went by the kitchen, and then it went right in front of the bedroom window. And it came back around, and then it swam across the pond that's right behind the camera. Was really cool in 2014 and 2016, 2 of the 3 times I've been to Mount Everest since I moved here in 2012. Nobody was looking after the house. Nobody was living here. I'd have somebody visit every day or two just to check up on it. But because it was so quiet and there was so little activity, there were animals that were finding this place to be a safe haven. One time in 2014, my sons came by just to check on the place, and he said that there was a mama bear and 2 cubs sleeping in the middle of the yard, 15 feet or so from the deck where I'm seated. And then in 2016, I can remember exactly where I park my car. There's a tree at the corner. You have to take this quick left turn, and there's this big tree. And one day I looked up, this is right after I got back from Everest, I looked up and there was a pileated woodpecker chick looking down at me. And it blew my mind. I love pileated woodpeckers. They're enormous. They're beautiful birds, and they're fun to listen to and observe in the wild, but they're usually fleeting. But this particular chick, which I thought was just one, was actually part of two hatches that happened that year for the pileated woodpeckers. So I would set up my camera, this one that I'm filming on right now, and set it up, zoom it in on the nest, and hit record, and then go away and just capture as much as I could of these two chicks. It was really cool. The pileated mom and dad were so focused on raising the chicks that they didn't really seem to mind when I was around. And I could sit on my porch on the other side of the cabin and watch, literally just observe this taking place. This is something that happens out in the wilderness. And it's the footage that you're looking at right now. I never knew what I would do with this footage, but it's fun to share it with you now. And I remember wanting to capture the day that they flew from the nest, and it was probably June 23rd or so of 2016, and the rain was awful. Just a torrential downpour came, and the visits from the mom and dad stopped. I remember thinking that maybe something awful had happened, and I had this foreboding of this horrible event that would strand the chicks 30 feet up in the tree. I thought, gosh, how am I going to feed them or help them? And I didn't think there was anything I could do. And I remember the mom and dad, for the hours I observed during this rainstorm from the protection of my porch, never came. And you could see from this footage, the chick, at least one, sticking its head out, looking, wondering when its next meal is going to be. So I worried, like an expectant mom, about the fate of these two chicks. And wouldn't you know it, that the next day the sun shone brightly and everything was fine. And then on July 1st, I believe it was July 1st, they took off and they disappeared. And every once in a while at night, I would hear from afar the call of a pileated woodpecker, and it would come in and sleep in that hole. The den, if you will, or the little cubby hole that they created in the tree, but they never nested there again. So I love the wilderness, and it's a beautiful place to be, and it highlights where I was going 15 or 20 and even 25 or 30 years ago, when I fell into the trance, if you will, of meditation. And I was very particular about meditation. I didn't feel comfortable without sounding overly critical, and it might come off that way. I felt that a lot of the meditation groups and organizations that taught meditation were very trivial and were kind of cliquey, and that a lot of people, there was a real neediness of the people there, which was okay, it's fine, it just wasn't to my liking. And that's when I discovered Vipassana meditation, which was if you learn it the right way, or at least guided into discovering it for your own by a teacher of Vipassana meditation, the words used to teach it were literally the words spoken by the Buddha thousands of years ago and carried down and hidden in recesses in Myanmar and in Thailand and India, and pairs of monks would go off and retain the direct, in the direct lineage of the Buddha, the spoken words that he used to teach monks how to meditate, vipassana, which is mindfulness meditation. And by using a technique that allows you to become keenly aware of the senses, of the actual movement of the molecules in your body, you become aware of and accepting of the fact that everything is constantly changing. Anicca is the word that the Buddha would use. And what one would do by observing the vibration of the molecules in your body, by literally observing them and feeling them, and it takes time for some people, what the idea is that when there might be a discomfort in your leg, if you're seated cross-legged, or in your back, or in your butt from being seated for extended periods of time, the idea would be not to react, to let that uncomfortable sensation pass and go away. And in so doing, we are able to withstand the ups and downs, the flows and nuances of life without reacting, without having a negative reaction. You hear a song you don't like, I hate that song, or you see a person that might make you feel something, you don't react negatively. So in Vipassana meditation, we become keenly aware that everything changes, even the good stuff, even the beautiful, serene and sensuous feelings that might happen when you're seated in meditation, because it can be very beautiful. Now, I went pretty far in my meditation world. I got really into it, and I was intent on going as far as one could be to discover what enlightenment or what self-realization was on the other side or through that work. So for years, I meditated sometime up to 6 hours a day, and it's insane. And it was a time in my life that I couldn't imagine revisiting, but I was aware that there were mind-altering drugs, LSD, for instance, and there are some others that can kind of give your mind a quick upgrade just by one use. But for some reason, I was always hesitant to use drugs. I think maybe I had some nagging fear in my mind that if I took LSD, I would have a bad trip, or if I did psilocybin mushrooms. But that was just a fear of mine. I don't really think the chances of that happening were that great. But I still avoided that. However, it's the same thing. I think a lot of people look at mind-altering drugs and use them recreationally, but it literally can give one an upgrade in terms of their way of thinking. It can dissolve the ego. It can make one feel more unified with all other creatures and beings. And in so doing, the use of LSD or psilocybin mushrooms, I believe it can be very helpful for a lot of people. And I've read and talked to people that I endeavor to get on this podcast that believe that such drugs can be helpful in treating PTSD with people who come back from combat, or survivors of sexual abuse or violence. And so, but for me personally, my path, the one that I chose, was through meditation. Maybe because I felt like I wanted to struggle more and feel the pain a little bit more and not have the quick upgrade. But I progressed. But ultimately, when I met my shaman friend in the Pacific Northwest, he started talking to me about the importance of mindfulness, but mindfulness without the energy is useless. So because I still would fight with my girlfriend who became my wife and now is the mom of my children, whom I'm very, very close with and adore. We would still fight, and we were young, and I was mindful, but I was still caught up in the impetuousness of youth and the impatience of trying to find nirvana or enlightenment through meditation and sitting on a mat for literally 6 hours a day and during 10 days silent meditation courses going from 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. Totally into it and feeling things and seeing things that I believe are attainable through the use of drugs, LSD, ayahuasca, peyote, things like that, which I've spoken about. Nonetheless, we all need to find our own way and pursue it with whatever vigor we can. But my shaman friend, in talking about energy, he said without love, and that's the energy, without love, mindfulness cannot really help us. It doesn't necessarily make the world a better place. And that's where loving kindness comes in. Metta, the use of loving kindness, repeating over and over kind words for other beings, even beings that might have harmed us. So yeah, that's my little dissertation on meditation and mind-altering drugs. An interesting point on mind-altering drugs is it's crazy. For thousands and thousands of years, tribes and cultures have been using these mind-altering drugs as a rite of passage, or to heal others in the tribe, or to bring the tribes closer together. And now, with the big pharmaceutical companies, they're illegal, which is incredible. And I think about all the people on this planet who are addicted to drugs, the opiates, of course, but the painkiller drugs, and it's all big pharma. Those are not illegal, and doctors will write thousands and thousands of scripts for it, but God forbid one should say, I'm going to try LSD or ayahuasca to help relieve me of the PTSD from being the survivor of sexual abuse or something of that nature. So these are the things that I'd like to explore more in this podcast, and I welcome your feedback and ideas, but I am endeavoring to find some guests who can share their experiences with that. So that's enough on Big Pharma, but my shaman friend shared with me at one time, it's called Ubuntu, and this is a humanist philosophy that there is a oneness of community, and I guess that's what my idea of kind of passing through meditation or the use of a mind-altering drug is. It dissolves the ego and it makes us feel more one with all the others. And in Ubuntu, there can be redemption instead of vengeance. And the saying in this that I had heard somewhere, and I've been trying to find in my notes where on earth I heard this, but this is an Ubuntu saying: my shine is your shine. I am successful because you are successful. I can't be all I can be until you can be all you can be. And so in the philosophy of Ubuntu, in a community, if there was a stranger who came into that community, he or she would not have to beg or ask for anything. He or she would just be taken care of, given food and shelter. Now, I don't know how far that would go if they could just, freeload forever and ever. But I think you get the idea of Ubuntu, and it's a spirit of oneness. And gosh, it seems to me that we sure could use more of that here. I think there's a lot, especially in social media. You just scroll down in Facebook or Twitter well, not as much Instagram, but you see a lot of criticisms of other people, and particularly in this political world that we're living in. One of the other things is an Ubuntu, somebody who is an individual who uses that philosophy does not feel threatened that others are successful or good or kind or championed for that kindness. The idea is that person is assured that they belong to a greater good, and any person that's good or able is helping the greater good, and only would be diminished when others are humiliated or oppressed. So it's this real cool community thinking, which brings me to this very, very cool book called Musa Masala, Mountain Girl of the Himalaya. Musa Masala. And it's a book that was written recently by one friend of mine with a couple of her partner friends. Her name is Tatiana Havreluk, and I met her on Mount Everest in 2014. She's a doctor, an ER doctor, who worked at an Everest hospital, in an Everest base camp hospital, if you will. And I got to camp in her camp area and spent a ton of time with her. And little did I know she had such talent, and she wrote it with friends of hers, Michael McLaughlin and August Johnson McLaughlin. And the reason I'm bringing this up now, after talking about Ubuntu, is Musa Masala, Mountain Girl of the Himalaya, is about a wayward, homeless girl who lived in Namche Bazaar. It's not a true story. The illustrations are by Julie Ramirez, and they're awesome. This little girl lives in a beautiful village called Namche Bazaar, which is in the heart of the Khumbu Valley in Nepal, a beautiful place that one must pass through on their way to Mount Everest. And I fell in love with Namche Bazaar myself when I first visited there back in 1993. And this little girl, Musa, it means mouse. That's what her name means. And she is befriended by a yak, and the yak takes her on a trip to Everest Base Camp. Beautiful, beautiful book. The yak's name is Rockpoo, and Rockpoo invites Musa to accompany him to Everest Base Camp. And in so doing, Musa gets to see a lot of the world and learn her strengths and learn her value in the world, because she thought, just as a homeless little girl, she had no value to the community. And even though she was young and had a lot to learn, the little girl found a place in a community. And what Musa ultimately found out when she got to Everest Base Camp is she met a doctor and met doctors there, and was encouraged to become a doctor herself and go on to help other people who got sick or tired or weak. And this wonderful journey can be read about in this book, and it's available. This is not a paid advertisement. I will say it's a beautiful, beautiful book that is great for adults and children alike. And one of the coolest things that ever happened to me was I was asked to do a little liner blurb for the book, and I wrote, and this is true, I had tears in my eyes from the outset. I connected with this young girl and her story. The inspiring and transformative journey of a lovable little homeless girl is an inspiration for us all. Musa learns that there are no limits on how far she can go in life. Such a wonderful tale for today's children, young and old. So look for this book. I'll put some information on where you can find it. It would make a great gift for a holiday or for a birthday for any child, young or old. Well, I've talked long enough. I'm going to bring it back to the fire pit and keep stoking it. We are wrapping up this episode with the music of the Rose City Kings, live performance recorded at KBOO Community Radio in Portland, Oregon in August of 2016, called the Blues Junction. That's an event they put on. And the Rose City Kings can be found at rosecitykings.com. No irony right there. Go support them. Look them up online. See if they're coming around to your town. Also, earlier in the show, in the episode, we heard Lobo Loco, my man Lobo Loco. He's at musicbrause.de, musicbrause.de. Support these musicians. I'm gonna run. These people are doing exactly what this entire podcast is all about. People letting the passions of their heart flow free. And these people devote their lives to the music that flows from within them. Support them. If you buy music, go check these guys out. I do want to thank you for being with me today. Remember, we create our reality with the thoughts that we empower. Thanks for stopping by and having a seat around the fire pit and joining me at my place here in New Hampshire. I will be seeing you real soon.
I am the captain of old Highway 5. I'm a traveler returning home.
Please go share this with friends and let them know about Baker Street with Thom Pollard. Put it on Facebook or Instagram, or send it via email to your mom or your friend or someone who might benefit from these stories that inspire.
I lift my voice and I declare that I would drive 500 more.